The late afternoon sunlight slanted through the tall windows of Langley's steakhouse, painting long golden stripes on the polished wood floor. The soft murmur of conversation rose and fell in pleasant waves. Clinks of silverware against fine china mixed with warm laughter, creating a cozy hum that wrapped around each table. Framed black and white photographs of rolling cattle ranches and hands at work lined the walls, reminding guests of roots and hard work. A gentle breeze drifted in through the slightly open door by the hostess stand, carrying a hint of the city's buzz and a faint promise of evening cool. Just then, a man stepped through that open door. He wore plain jeans that were neatly pressed, but earned their creases from frequent wear. A dark blue ball cap sat low on his forehead, shading his eyes. His shirt was a simple cotton polo, its brand name hidden by a stray button left undone at the collar. On his feet were scuffed shoes that had no logo, no heels that clicked too loudly. He moved with a quiet confidence, his shoulders straight but relaxed. As he paused to take in the room, his gaze drifted casually across the tables as if he were a new arrival in town, curious to see what made this place special. The man had walked many steps like this before. He was Marcus Langley, the very CEO whose polished office overlooked an entire city block. He was the man who made decisions that shaped the chain's future, who studied profit reports and marketing plans late into the night. Yet today he wanted to erase all of that. He wanted to see the restaurant through fresh eyes, free from the weight of his own name. So he traded his tailored suit for soft denim, his crisp shirt for a tucked-in polo, his polished shoes for these plain, reliable ones. In the mirror before leaving home, he'd studied himself carefully. No tie, no briefcase, no name badge. Just a man in jeans and a cap. Walking into his own restaurant like any other customer, he paused at the hostess stand, where a bright young woman greeted him with a genuine smile. Her name tag read Jess, and her hair was pulled back in a tidy ponytail. Her friendly manner put him at ease. He simply nodded and asked, "Table for one, please." His voice was steady, low, and just a bit warm. Jess led him past tables, where friends chatted, families celebrated, and couples leaned close to share a laugh. The soft glow of wall sconces made everything feel welcoming. As they walked, Jess tapped her black tablet and read a note to the kitchen. "One, please." She settled him at a corner table by the window. A placemat with a simple printed menu was already waiting. Jess handed him a leather binder filled with pages of appetizers, salads, and steaks. She smiled again, that same friendly look that made guests feel valued. "We have a special tonight," she said, pointing to a handwritten card tucked into the binder. "Our chef recommends the dry-aged ribeye. It's been on special for just 2 weeks and it's selling fast." She glanced up at him, expecting a decision, but he merely glanced at the menu, curious. "Thank you," he said softly, raising an invisible shield around himself so nothing would give away his real identity. Jess noticed how he held the menu at an angle, how he traced the words with the tip of his finger. She saw that this guest had a thoughtful air, someone used to making decisions but taking his time tonight. She nodded and stepped back. "I'll be right back with your drink," she said, and slipped away to the bar. Marcus watched her go, admiring the way she moved, confident, caring. He took a deep breath, letting the sound of the restaurant fill him. He listened to a toddler giggle in the next booth, to a server quietly refilling a water glass, to the sizzle of the kitchen just beyond the swinging door. It felt different now, through this other door, away from his office, away from his titles. He took off his cap for a moment, running one hand across his forehead. He remembered the day he had stood in a place much like this, uninvited feeling, shy about asking for a job. That was years ago after college, before he climbed ladders or sat in high-rise offices. He had learned then that this kind of work could be honest and good. He had seen people who cared, people who worked hard for every smile and every plate delivered. Today he wanted to honor that, wanted to see how each piece fit together, the guests, the servers, the cooks, and the silence between rushes. A few steps away, behind an order station, Tanya Rivers finished balancing her notepad. She had been here for 3 years, learning each day what made a great dining experience. She knew how to read a guest's mood in a single glance. When she saw Marcus open the menu with a faint frown of concentration. She sensed someone who cared about more than just the food. She approached with a friendly nod. "Can I get you started with anything? A drink, maybe?" she asked, voice bright. Marcus looked up, surprised by her warmth. Her uniform was crisp, her name tag shining. Her dark hair framed her face, and her eyes were inviting. He realized that he had heard her voice in his office, praising her in monthly performance reports. Yet here she was, treating him like any other guest. He smiled beneath his cap. "I'd like a glass of your house red," he said. "What do you recommend?" Tanya tapped her pen on the menu. "Our house red is a Merlot from the valley up. North, it has soft notes of cherry and plum.
Aye.
It pairs nicely with beef, especially our ribeye." She glanced around, making sure her steps were smooth. Other servers passed behind her, carrying plates with grilled asparagus and mashed potatoes. Their pace, quick but careful. The kitchen door swung. Briefly, a helper ducked out with a plate that filled the air with the scent of garlic and rosemary. "I'll have that," Marcus said, returning the menu gently. "And some water, please." He swung his cap back. On, pulling it low, as if settling into anonymity. He watched Tanya write down the order. Then she folded the menu and tucked it beside the salt and pepper shakers. "I'll be right back," she said, her expression kind. As she moved away, Marcus glanced down the length of the restaurant. The warm light offered comfort. Small clusters of friends leaned in close over their meals. Retired couples shared a slice of chocolate cake. A group of coworkers laughed at a joke one had just told. He felt that tonight, this place was alive in all the ways he'd always hoped his company would be known for. He thought about how many times he had surveyed his own restaurants from the office balcony, looking at numbers on a screen instead of faces in a dining room. He had asked for reports on service times and guest satisfaction scores. He had checked profit margins and staff turnover. All of that felt important. But now, sitting here as a guest, he realized there was more to it. He realized that every smile from the hostess, every careful pour of wine, every gentle check-in from a server like Tanya was part of something larger, something human and real. The bartender placed a tall glass of water on his table, followed by a stemmed glass of deep red wine. Tanya had recommended well. He lifted the wine, inhaled its soft fragrance, and let it rest on his tongue. It was smooth, welcoming, and warm. At that moment, Marcus felt both the promise of tonight's dinner and the pull of tomorrow's possibilities. He leaned back, closed his eyes for a brief second, and listened. He realized that in this simple scene, a man in jeans sharing a table with a stranger there was a lesson waiting to be learned. He opened his eyes when a soft voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you ready to order, or would you like a few more minutes?" Tanya stood beside his chair, her smile steady. Marcus looked up at her and nodded. "I'm ready," he said, his voice calm. "I'll take the dry-aged ribeye, medium rare, with the garlic mashed potatoes and the roasted vegetables." He spoke with ease, confident that she would deliver. She thanked him and slipped away to place the order. After she left, Marcus looked out the window once more. The sky was turning pink and orange. The city lights would soon wake up. Inside, the restaurant glowed like a beacon. He took another sip of his wine, feeling both excitement and peace. He was in a different role tonight. He was a guest, open to being surprised. And that felt good. The corner of the kitchen window rattled as the cook flipped a sizzling ribeye on the hot grill. Marcus watched from his table, fascination shining in his eyes. He saw the line cook brush a plume of smoke aside, then carefully slide the steak onto a metal tray. The kitchen was alive with noise. Pans clanging, voices calling out orders, the hiss of steam. Everything moved in a steady rhythm, like a well-rehearsed dance. He had never paid such close attention before. As CEO, he usually saw only numbers and charts, never the hands that made every meal possible. A young sous chef carried the tray to a counter, where a seasoned grill master stood. He inspected the meat, nodded, and tapped his watch. 2 minutes more for that perfect medium rare. Marcus felt a thrill as he realized how much care went into a single plate. He picked up his wine again, swirling the deep red in his glass. Its scent rose gently, mingling with the aroma of garlic and herbs drifting from the kitchen. He breathed deeply and smiled to himself. This was more alive than any board meeting. Moments later, Tanya appeared at his side, balancing a small plate. On her open palm, a neat row of grilled shrimp, glistening with butter and herbs, waited under a sprig of parsley. "A little appetizer on the house," she said softly, placing the plate in front of him. Her voice was warm, like a friendly neighbor's. Marcus blinked, surprised. He had not asked for shrimp. She sat on the edge of his table, not too close, not too far, and folded her hands in front of her. "I noticed you looked curious about the menu," she said, glancing at his half-empty wine glass. "This shrimp is fresh from the coast. It pairs well with Merlot." She tapped the edge of the plate. "Try a bite." Marcus admired her confidence. She spoke as if she believed in every word she said. He picked up a fork and gently speared one shrimp. The first taste was warm and buttery. Tiny bits of garlic melted on his tongue. The shrimp was juicy and tender. He closed his eyes for a moment and nodded. "This is excellent," he said softly. "Just the right touch of salt and herbs." Tanya smiled, pleased. "You like it. Always think a good appetizer can set the tone for the whole meal." She straightened, ready to go. "Let me know when you're ready for your steak," walked away, moving smoothly through the tables. Other diners hardly noticed her passing. She looked like every other server. But Marcus knew there was something special in the way she carried herself. He set the fork down and studied the room. Each server had their own style. One glided silently with a tray loaded with glasses. Another balanced a plate with one hand while holding a towel over the other arm. The kitchen door in the back swung open and closed like a heartbeat. He felt connected to all of them in a new way. In his suit and tie, he had never felt so far from this world. But tonight, in jeans and a cap, he belonged. When the dry-aged ribeye arrived, it was a masterpiece. Tanya carried it with care, as if it were a fragile work of art. Steam curled up around the steak, carrying the scent of char and smoke. He watched her place it on the table beside a mound of garlic mashed potatoes and a colorful pile of roasted vegetables. She adjusted the plate so it faced him perfectly, then stepped back. He could not help but smile. "Thank you," he said. He picked up his knife and cut into the steak. The blade sank in easily, and a pink, tender center greeted him. He lifted the forkful to his mouth and bit down slowly. Juices ran over his lips. The meat was rich but balanced, with a hint of temps from the dry aging. The potatoes were creamy, with just enough garlic to make them sing. The vegetables snapped under his teeth, each piece bright with flavor. He swallowed and closed his eyes, savoring the moment. Tanya hovered at the edge of his table. "Is it everything you hoped for?" she asked. Marcus opened his eyes and looked at her. "It's perfect," he said. "Honestly, one of the best steaks I've ever had." She beamed. Marcus saw her pride glow like a small light. "I'll let the chef know you enjoyed it," she said, and turned smoothly to move on. He watched her go, then tapped his glass to catch the bartender's eye. He filled his wine gently, then took another bite of steak. With each mouthful, he appreciated the care in every detail, the cut of the meat, the timing on the grill, the seasoning in the sides. He thought about how many plates like this went out each night at every restaurant under his name, thought about the hidden effort behind each one. After he set down his knife, he thought to ask Tanya a question. She returned with a small dish of warmed butter for his bread. He reached for it and paused. "Excuse me," he called softly. "Could you tell me how you learned to serve so well?" Tanya turned, curiosity in her eyes. She leaned in, listening closely as if someone had shared a secret. "I started here as a hostess," she replied. "Then I trained as a server. I watched every shift, took notes, asked questions. I learned from chefs, from managers, from other servers." She shrugged. "I like learning." Marcus nodded slowly. "You have a gift?" he said. She laughed quietly. "I just care. I want every guest to feel welcome." She scanned the room. Sometimes guests are in a hurry. Sometimes they have big celebrations. Sometimes they just need someone to listen. She paused, and Marcus felt the moment stretch between them. I believe the food matters, but so does how people feel when they come here. She smiled. That's what keeps me here. Marcus felt his heart warm. He pictured the surveys he received each month, numbers, percentages, comments, but he had never allowed himself to feel the stories behind the scores. Now he listened to one woman's passion. He wanted more. Thank you for sharing, he said. Tanya nodded and placed a small pad and pen on his table. If you need anything else, just tap the pad. She turned to leave. He watched her go, then set the pad aside. He finished the potatoes and savored the last bites of steak. Round him, the hum of the restaurant rose and fell like a tide. He sat back, finishing his wine, reflecting on how distance between the office and the dining room had hidden so much. He realized that every person here had their own story, their own pride in work, their own hopes. When the final bite was gone, Marcus straightened and reached into his pocket for his wallet. He did not want to break character yet. He opened the leather check holder without looking inside and slid his credit card in. Just then, he noticed the edge of a folded piece of paper tucked under the folder. He paused, curious. He did not remember seeing it when Tanya left the pad. He closed the holder and set it down lightly. Footsteps passed nearby as other guests prepared to leave. A child waved goodbye to a server, and the server bent down to catch the wave. A couple whispered thanks to another waiter. Marcus looked around at the faces of people who worked here, people like Tanya who made this place a home for others each night. He felt a new sense of respect. He gathered his cap, placed it on his head, and stood. It was time to step back into his suit and title in the office tomorrow, but tonight he carried something more valuable, the heart of his own restaurant. Marcus closed the check folder and held it in his hand, breathing in the warm, lingering scent of garlic and rosemary that still clung to his clothes. He paused in the aisle as a family left their table, the children waving goodbye to a server who knelt down to return the gesture. He watched that small moment of kindness and then tucked the folder under his arm. His steps felt lighter than they had in years. He turned toward the kitchen door, but then stopped, remembering the folded paper he had glimpsed. He shifted the folder so the paper fell into view. With careful fingers, he slid it free and unfolded it. The handwriting was neat and firm, each letter clear and strong. He read the first line. "Sir, you deserve to know the truth behind our smiles." He paused, the words echoing in his mind. He read on. The note spoke of long shifts, early mornings, and the weight of unpaid overtime that cooks and servers carried. It spoke of a new mother worried about hospital bills, a single father saving for his daughter's school supplies, a dishwasher nearing retirement still struggling to pay rent. Tanya had written it, but her words brought countless voices to life. Each line revealed the hidden struggles of the people who fed his restaurants. Below the radar of his profit reports and efficiency metrics, he felt a knot in his throat as he realized how little he truly knew about their lives. He folded the note again and slipped it into his pocket, letting its weight settle there with him. He walked back to his table, pretending to tidy the salt and pepper shakers. His heart pounded with a mixture of pride and shame. He imagined Tanya watching him, waiting to see if he would understand. He felt drawn to speak with her again, but he hesitated. He did not want to blow his cover yet. Wanted to learn more, to ask questions that came from curiosity, not authority. He sipped the last of his wine and stood. Taking only a moment to glance once more at the empty plate, he straightened his cap and moved toward the server station. Behind the station, servers hurried past each other, carrying plates and refilling waters. He saw Tanya there, checking on a group of business diners who leaned in to share a plate of fries. She balanced a tray in one hand and held a notepad in the other, guiding guests through specials and patiently answering their questions. He watched her take orders from different tables, her voice calm yet engaging. He thought of the note she had slipped him and felt a surge of admiration. He could not wait to learn more from her. He stepped forward and waited until she finished with the group. Tanya glanced up and saw him. She offered her usual bright smile. "Is there anything else I can get for you tonight?" she asked, but her eyes held a trace of something more, an invitation, or perhaps a test. Marcus swallowed. He wanted to speak. Wanted to ask why she did what she did, why she risked writing that note. He wanted to show her he cared. Yet he also feared that if he revealed too much, she might retreat behind a professional guard. He chose his words carefully. "I actually left my phone back at my office," he began, voice low. "Could I ask you a few questions?" She raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Of course," she said softly. "What would you like to know?" He led her to an empty booth in the quiet corner by the windows. Outside, the city lights had begun to glow against the dusk sky. Inside, the tables shone under the soft lamps. He sat and waited as Tanya took the seat across from him. She folded her hands on the table and smiled. "Go ahead," she said. Marcus reached into his pocket, pulled out the folded note, and placed it on the table. His reflection shimmered in the glass behind her. "You wrote this," he said. These words, they moved me. He met her eyes. She nodded, a slight tension in her shoulders. "I did," she replied. "I wanted someone in charge to hear what we go through." His heart tightened. "Tell me," he whispered. "What made you speak up?" Danya glanced down at the note. She ran her fingertip along one crease, as if tracing a memory. "I've seen too many good people work themselves into exhaustion," she said quietly. "They hide their stress behind a smile, because they think that's what keeps them safe. But the truth is, we need help. We need someone to listen." She looked back at him, her eyes honest and unguarded. "I've been here 3 years, and I love it. But I've watched coworkers leave because they couldn't afford to stay. I thought if the owner knew, maybe something would change." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. He realized that everything he had planned for the rest of his evening checking, the rest of the dining rooms, tests of service protocols, mattered less than this moment. He leaned forward. "What would help?" he asked. "What could I do for you and the team right now?" She looked at him, studying his plain clothes and that simple cap. "For starters," she began, "we need better schedules. We need someone who understands that we have lives outside of work, and we need a way to speak up without fear of losing our jobs." She paused, gathering her courage. "And I'd like to ask for regular meetings, where someone from corporate actually listens to our ideas." Marcus nodded, each suggestion lighting a spark of determination in him. He took a mental note of her words. He promised himself he would not forget. He signaled for water and then spoke as warmly as he could. "Thank you for being honest," he said. "I want to make this restaurant a place where everyone can succeed, not just the guests." Tanya's face softened. She offered a small, relieved smile. "It's all we ever wanted," she said. They sat quietly for a moment, listening to the low hum of the restaurant. In that peaceful silence, Marcus felt something shift inside. He no longer wanted to just fix one location. He wanted to transform the whole chain. Tanya stood when the water arrived, ready to return to her duties. Marcus held up his hand to stop her. "Please stay," he said. She hesitated, then sat again. He pressed a folded card onto the table. It had his real name and a simple email address. "If you ever need anything, call me, even if it's just to share ideas or concerns," he said. She picked up the card and eyed it. Her own name tag had always felt like a small emblem of her hard work. Now she held someone else's name, someone who could change everything. She tucked the card into her uniform pocket over her heart. "Thank you," she whispered. He stood, adjusting his cap as if to leave, but he paused in the aisle once more. He looked across the dining room, at every face he could see, at every hand that worked behind the scenes. He took a deep breath and swallowed hard. For the first time in his career, he felt seen not as a CEO, but as a human being who cared. That was a rare gift, and he resolved to honor it. He left a generous tip on the table, more than any standard policy required, and slipped his credit card into the holder. When he handed it to Tanya, he smiled. "Thank you for everything," he said. She thanked him back, a genuine kindness shining through. He nodded and turned away, walking past tables of contented guests. At the door, he paused and looked back. At the restaurant, its glow felt like a lighthouse, guiding him toward a new purpose. He pushed the door open and stepped into the night air. The city's buzz greeted him, indifferent but welcoming. He tipped his cap to the hostess who greeted him at the door then walked toward his car. In his pocket, the folded note lay heavy with hope. In his mind, plans had already begun to form, plans to listen, to change, to uplift. And he knew that. This night would be remembered not just in profit reports, but in the hearts of every person who worked under his name. Marcus sat alone in his glass office, the city lights spilling across his desk. He wore his crisp suit and polished shoes. In his pocket was the folded note that Tanya gave him. I read it again. It reminded him of last night. He felt a steady pull in his heart. He turned from the skyline to his computer screen. Instead of the usual reports, he opened a blank document. He could almost hear the hum of the restaurant. Typed a title, Employee Listening Sessions. Then he paused. He knew that this would be more than a plan. It would be a promise. By mid-morning, he called Tanya's number from his desk phone. When she answered, her voice was calm but curious. He asked her to meet him at the flagship location after her shift. She hesitated only a moment before agreeing. He emailed her a time and location, careful not to reveal too much. He hoped she would come. He placed the folded note on his desk, next to his nameplate. The paper felt heavy and valuable. He straightened his tie and left the office to catch the elevator. His heart beat faster with each floor. Across town, Tanya finished her shift and returned to the staff room. Her heart skipped when she read the email. She looked around at her colleagues packing up their belongings. A few asked if she was okay. She gave them a small smile and said she had a meeting. They nodded, trusting her. She slipped on her jacket, tucking the note into an inner pocket. As she walked out the back door, dusk light warmed the streets. She thought about the card Marcus had given her. She still held it close, using it as a reminder of hope. When Tanya arrived at the flagship, Restaurant Marcus was waiting in the same corner booth. He wore a simple polo today, no cap, but she recognized him instantly. He stood when she entered and waved. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. She sat down and he pushed the folded note toward her. "I kept this here," he said. "Changed how I see everything." He opened his laptop and pulled up a slide deck. "I want to share some ideas with you," he began. Her eyes widened and she leaned forward. The bustle of the dining room dimmed at the edges of her vision. He talked about schedules that respected personal needs. He spoke of profit sharing and small bonuses for long shifts. He described monthly listening sessions where any team member could speak freely. He proposed a pilot program that would let staff vote on their own shift changes. Tanya listened, her hands folded neatly on the table. She nodded at each idea, offering small suggestions. A silent suggestion box, a rotating leadership seat for servers, a peer-to-peer recognition board. Her face glowed with pride. She felt seen for the first time. They spent an hour in that booth, sketching out plans on napkins and clicking through digital slides. Other servers peeked in, curious but respectful. The general manager stopped by to say hello, and Marcus greeted her by name. She blinked in surprise when she realized who he was. He smiled at her quietly, then returned to the conversation with Tanya. When they finished, Marcus closed his laptop and looked at Tanya. "Thank you," he said. "I could not have done this without you." She shook her head. "You did it." She replied, "You chose to listen." Over the next week, changes rolled out quickly. Schedules were posted with clear shift swaps and personal time slots. Suggestion boxes appeared in each break room. An online forum opened with real-time updates from headquarters. Tanya's name was at the top of the first listening session roster. Staff paused between tables to discuss improvements. The kitchen team cheered when the dishwasher schedule was trimmed, so he could leave before midnight. Even the morning crew smiled brighter, knowing they had relief for rush hour. A month later, Tanya stood at a small podium in a bright meeting room. She led the first all-hands listening session. Supervisors and servers sat in a circle, sharing stories and ideas. She briefly told Marcus's story without naming him. She explained how one note had sparked this change. Her voice was steady as she guided each speaker. She thanked every person who had joined. At the end, a server raised her hand. "When's the next session?" Tanya smiled. "Next Friday," she said, "and we'll have coffee and muffins." The room erupted in soft laughter. Meanwhile, Marcus visited other locations in person. He arrived first as a guest, then as a listener. Staff recognized him sometimes, but most of the time he was just another polo-clad manager walking among them. He sat with hosts, with bussers, and with cooks on their breaks. He took notes, asked questions, and truly heard their answers. Implemented small perks, free meal vouchers, birthday treats, extra training days. He watched as morale rose. Scores on guest surveys climbed. Turnover rates dropped. But more than that, he saw workers smiling again. 3 months after that first meeting, the company announced the profit-sharing pilot. Every staff member, from servers to dishwashers, received a small quarterly bonus tied to customer satisfaction. The news arrived in a colorful email, but the real celebration was on the restaurant floors. Managers handed out printed summaries and high-fived their teams. Tanya received a special mention. She blushed when someone whispered that she had sparked the idea. She held the card with his name and email as if it were a medal. One evening, Marcus returned to the original location without disguise. He walked in through the hostess stand, this time wearing his suit and name badge. Tanya greeted him by name with a bright smile. He ordered a ribeye, medium rare, and sat at a table by the window. The moment felt right as he waited. Tanya approached with a glass of wine and a plate of shrimp, just like that first night, but without the secrecy. She placed them before him and said, "Welcome back, sir. It's on the house." He lifted his glass in thanks and met her warm eyes. He tasted the shrimp and savored the steak, feeling both the flavors and the journey. Tanya stayed to talk between tables, laughing with other guests. Marcus watched her content. He realized that this place was alive not because of a CEO or a brand, but because of people like Tanya, people who cared enough to speak up and leaders who cared enough to listen. He folded the final bill into his wallet and left a generous tip. Walked out into the night. He knew this was just the beginning of a new story, one written by many hands together. Marcus pushed open the door of Langley's Steakhouse and stepped into the warm glow of the dining room.
Ow.
He no longer wore a cap to hide his face. Tonight he moved freely, confident, and at home. The air smelled of grilled meat and fresh bread. Guests sat at tables, smiling and talking. Servers glided between them, plates balanced in steady hands. At the hostess stand, a new face greeted Marcus with a cheerful, "Good evening, Mr. Langley." It was the same kindness he had first felt, here now passed on by an entirely new team. He walked to the corner where he had first slipped on his jeans and cap. The booth stood empty, but for the gentle lamp glow. He remembered that first night, the nervous thrill of being unknown, the thrill of tasting service made with pride. Now, a year later, everything had changed. He breathed in deeply, the air, warm and familiar. Every chair, every table, every photograph on the wall felt alive with memories of hard work and kindness. He felt a quiet joy at how far they had come. Behind the bar, Tanya Rivers moved confidently. She no longer carried only a tray. She oversaw the staff and trained new servers. Her uniform had small gold bars on the collar, symbols of her promotion. When she saw Marcus, she smiled and waved. He nodded in thanks and took a seat at his favorite table by the window. Tanya approached with a glass of Merlot, just as she had done on that first night. Met now with the ease of someone who leads. "I've saved your spot," she said softly, setting the wine before him. "Welcome back." Marcus returned her smile. He saw the glow of pride in her eyes. He remembered the note she had slipped him, the moment she showed him what lay beneath polished surfaces. Now she was a leader, and she had shaped this place. For the better, he lifted his glass in salute. "To progress," he said, "and to you." She blushed and nodded before moving on to greet another guest. All around them, the restaurant hummed with life. A family at one table toasted with their glasses. Birthday party at another burst into applause as someone sang happy birthday. Servers moved with purpose, their steps light. In the back, the kitchen team worked as one body, calling out orders and plating dishes with artful care. Tanya had helped establish monthly training nights, where cooks shared new recipes and servers tasted them. Now the menu featured seasonal specials born from those sessions. After Tanya left, Marcus leaned back and soaked it in. He thought of the dishwasher named Rosa, who once worried about balancing work and college. Under the new program, she had attended night classes supported by a small company grant. Today, she worked as a prep cook, her eyes bright with future plans. Thought of the line cook, Diego, who had stayed late to tutor his son in math. The profit-sharing bonus had paid for a tutor and eased his mind. Marcus felt pride in each story, proof that small gestures could ripple outward. A waiter brought Marcus a plate of dry-aged ribeye, cooked just right. The meat glowed with juices, the sides perfectly seasoned. As he cut into it, he tasted not just a meal but the labor of many hands trained to care. He thought of the careful timing practiced in kitchen drills, the gentle encouragement Tanya gave each new server, the laughter and questions in the break room during listening sessions. This steak carried every lesson they had learned together. He finished his dinner slowly, savoring each bite, then tucked into a slice of chocolate cake. As he ate, he watched Tanya lead a small group through a back-of-house tour. New hires listened to her stories about company history and its human heart. Marcus felt the warmth of that circle, a reminder that culture came from shared tales and open ears. He recalled how uneasy it had seemed to hide behind his title, and how freeing it was to step into honest conversations. When his meal was done, Marcus asked for the check. Tanya brought it and added a handwritten note of her own. "Thank you for believing in us." He read it with a grin, then left a generous tip and tucked the note into his pocket. He stood and looked around one last time. He saw servers wiping tables with care, a hostess laughing with a guest, kitchen staff passing dishes in perfect rhythm. Each person glowed in the soft light. He walked out into the night, the city breeze cool on his face. Under the street lamp, he paused and touched the note in his pocket. It had started as a simple piece of paper, but now it was a token of trust and change. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a clean sheet of paper, wrote a new message to every restaurant in the chain. "Keep listening, keep caring." He folded it and tucked it into his wallet as a reminder. Over the next weeks, he visited other towns where Langley's had restaurants. He joined staff meetings, not as a distant boss, but as a friend. He served meals during busy nights, washed dishes alongside veterans of the kitchen, and dusted tables when servers needed a hand. He laughed with them, shared stories, and learned new details about the communities they served. Everywhere he went, he carried the lesson Tanya had taught him, that leadership was listening, and that respect was shown by small acts. Back at headquarters, he launched a scholarship fund for children of staff, paid for by a fraction of corporate earnings. He held an annual thank you event where employees could bring family and friends to the flagship restaurant. There, under string lights and soft music, they shared food and stories. Tanya stood by his side as the guest of honor, and he thanked her publicly for her courage and vision. She waved shyly, and the crowd cheered her name. Months later, Marcus sat at his desk and looked out at the city skyline. He thought about the man in jeans and a cap who once walked into his own restaurant looking for truth. He felt that same spark of curiosity. He opened his laptop to write a letter to all managers. Remember to walk the floor, to sit with your team, to listen. He hit send. In that moment, he knew the note hidden in his wallet still guided him in every restaurant from coast to coast. Staff shared stories of how a single note changed the chain's heart. They spoke of Tanya's spirit, of Marcus's willingness to learn, of the cameras that once caught nothing but numbers but now recorded smiles and gratitude. They knew that steak alone did not make their brand. Their people did. Those people, once hidden behind silent struggle, now stood proud and strong. As night fell on another busy evening, Marcus drove home with a calm mind. He thought of the day ahead, meetings, reports, decisions. Yet he felt ready. He carried with him the whispered echoes of servers, cooks, and hosts. Each voice a reminder that progress grew from honest ears and open hearts. He parked under the street lamp and reached into his pocket. He pulled out the folded note that started it all and read it one more time. "Sir, you deserve to know the truth behind our smiles." He smiled back at it, thanked it, and tucked it safely away. Then, He turned off the car lights and walked into Tomar.